So that could have led to, honestly, a catastrophe, like engine blowing up because the oil getting too thin. I was lucky enough that I caught it soon enough. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we're back in my street because I have no driveway, so this is where I do all the work on my car. Today we're actually going to be trying to diagnose a problem with my Subaru. As you see by the thumbnail, I'm getting gas in my oil. Like, it reeks of fuel, and obviously that's not safe because oil is a lubricant and fuel possibly dry some things out. We have to do a couple tests to see what's causing that. Obviously, injectors may be a problem, so in order to check if the injectors are leaking, we're going to pull the plugs and see if they're wet. And then, because we're doing that, we're going to do a compression test anyway to make sure the rings and all that aren't bad. And then depending what we find, we may or may not do a leak down test as well. But you don't want your oil smelling like fuel, so I got to figure out why that's happening before I blow up my engine because of carelessness on my parts. So let's start taking some things apart so we could get to the spark plugs. Oh, shit. Whew. This fucking thing, I don't know if you could see, literally wet. Smells like fuel. It's like I'm smelling straight out of a can of fuel. Alright, so cylinder 1 is soaked. Now let's check all the rest. Not as wet as the other injector, but still smells like fuel pretty badly. So the basement's now done. We're just waiting for it to dry, and then we could paint it and put everything back in.
Nobody comes out from the police department. They bring somebody up from the Airport Parkway.
So this spark plug is not wet, and it does not smell like fuel. So as of right now, the culprit is the other side injectors. And this spark plug barely smells as well, and it's not wet either, so that's pretty good. So right here we got a compression tester from AutoZone that we rented, so we're going to check the compression on all the cylinders just to make sure my motor's still healthy. So before you do the compression test, go under your driver's side footwell and you'll find this fuse panel right up in here, and you want to disconnect this fuse. First column, second row, 15A, that is for your ignition system so it won't send spark. I took that guy out. And then I was looking for a fuel pump fuse. I couldn't find one, and when I looked it up, they said take off the back seat and undo this clip right here, which goes to the fuel pump. I turned the ignition on my car, and you do not hear the fuel pump prime. So that's when you would usually hear it prime. So that's good. So now we can compression test it, and we'll hope for the best. So cylinder 1 is at 120. So cylinder 3 is at just about 100, but I don't necessarily believe that because my battery sounds weak, so I might have to charge the battery beforehand. Alright, so I just switched the batteries out. This one's fully charged. And cylinder 1 I retested just to make sure it was the battery, and now we're at 150 psi on cylinder 1, which is much better than 120. So now let's go to cylinder 3. Alright, so cylinder 3 is still lower than 1. Alright, so as you saw, we compression tested the motor. Everything turned out to be alright besides cylinder 3, which was a little lower than the rest. But now, the adapter for the compression tester is stuck in cylinder 4. I'm going to do some research, see what I can find in order to get it out, and I'll let you know because apparently this is fairly common, so I might as well make a video on this as well. Now let's pull the injectors. So we got the injectors out, 1, 3, 2, and 4. So I'm just gonna label these and then bring them to get leak tested and flow tested. Obviously 1 was where the spark plug was super wet. 3 was a little bit, these 2 seemed alright, but who knows, they could all be gunked up. But I'm also gonna change the filter while I'm at it because I haven't changed that in a while. And then we should hopefully be good to go. Alright, so it's been a couple days and we got my injectors back. They've been clean, flow tested, and balanced. Cylinder 1 injector was actually torn on the inside, so it couldn't be cleaned or repaired. So the shop I brought it to ordered me a new one, so I didn't have to buy a whole new set, which was really nice. So I got my injectors all ready. I also got another set of spark plugs, which I'm gonna have to gap before I throw in, a fuel filter, and we'll change the oil and hope everything starts up. Also, I got a fuel filter because I haven't changed it in a while, so that's probably why these injectors got bad so quick. So that was on me, but down the line I definitely need to upgrade from the stock one. But for now, that's what we're gonna do. So let's get started. So the injectors we're putting in are NGK BKR7Es. These are 1 step colder than the factory recommendation. My tuner said to use these. And then he said to gap them to 0.024. I forget what these come out of the package with, but that's what we're going to gap them to. So we drained my oil, but just to be safe, I'm gonna check it. So when I pour it in here, I'm gonna see if there's any metal grit, because that's the last thing we want. But it does reek of fuel, which I knew, and the consistency seems to be all right. It doesn't seem like the fuel affected it too much. So I'm just gonna go over a checklist out loud to make sure I did everything. Obviously, fuel injectors are in and tightened down, fuel filter is on and tightened. I tightened up the intake, the hot side intercooler piping, the coolant lines, the coolant reservoir, the oil drain plug is tight, the oil filter is tight. I checked the oil, that's looking good. Now I just have to plug in the ignition fuse and plug in the fuel pump, and then we can put in the battery and prime it a couple times until we get fuel pressure, and then we'll start it and see if we smell any fuel. Alright, I primed the car. It's just under 40 psi. I don't smell any fuel. I don't see any leaks, which is good. I'm gonna prime it again. I don't smell or see any fuel, so let's get it started. Let it warm up, check the oil again, smell it, and hopefully we're all good. So everything seems to be all right on my car. I don't see any fuel leaks, I don't smell any fuel leaks. As we know, the compression is pretty good. So that's how you check your injectors, and I forget why I was doing this, honestly. Hold on. So that's why you have to check your injectors if you smell any fuel smell, because as you saw, my cylinder 1 fuel injector was shot. So that could have led to, honestly, a catastrophe, like engine blowing up because the oil getting too thin. I was lucky enough that I caught it soon enough. So don't be lazy if you smell fuel, check it out, make sure everything's all right. But that's it for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.